Hello everybody, I am Destros, and this is probably going to be the first episode of the first series on this channel. I'm not sure if this is going to be the first video on the channel or not. I'm pretty lazy, so this is probably going to be the first episode. Why do I keep saying episode? The first video on the channel. But I am going to be playing World of Warcraft Wrath of the Lich King, which is not quite the most legal thing for me to be playing on this channel. But the release of Warcraft Classic, specifically World of Warcraft Classic, because Warcraft Classic would be the RTS. But the release of World of Warcraft Classic a few weeks ago has made me really want to go back to playing this game. So it's been about 3 or 4 years since the last time I played Wrath of the Lich King on this private server that I'm on. I'm not going to say the name of the private server. You definitely can't see it up here. Um, I forgot about that. Let's just go ahead and get started. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go through the races really quick and let y'all read the things at the bottom and show you the male and female variations. Give you like a quick little blurb about like just how I feel, man. So let's go. So we have humans. I've always kind of thought humans were boring. I've never quite liked any of the Alliance, except for Draenei and later Worgens. But if I ever get around to playing any Cataclysm or, God forbid, current WoW, I will. Current WoW's not that bad. Well, let me quantify that. I have not played Battle for Azeroth. I've heard mainly from Matt Roy of GameSpot, what? From Giant Bomb, that Battle for Azeroth isn't that great. So, as you can see here, we have humans. So, humans can detect stealth a bit better. They have increased spirit, which, if I remember correctly, spirit is how quickly you regain mana, and not intelligence is how much mana you have. Spirit is how quickly you regain it. I might be wrong about that. They have bonus to reputation gains, which means that like if I'm trying to get dwarf reputation up so I can buy their mount, I can. They have increased experience with swords and maces, so they would be really good warriors or like rogues if you wanted to do double swords, or paladins if you wanted to use maces. And they can break out of speed altering or trapping effects. So if I think this is mostly for PvP, but if you wanted to have a character who like doesn't get snared. So humans are a young race and that's highly versatile. I'm not going to read all of these. I'm just going to read a few sentences from each. The humans' valor and optimism have led them to build some of the world's greatest kingdoms. Kind of just sounds like propaganda, but okay. So it's my girlfriend texting me. But let's go down to dwarfs. I will read out the classes and stuff after I do this. Just want to get through all of the races first. So dwarfs, I've never really played a dwarf in these types of games, like in Final Fantasy 14. Like I've never played a Lalafell, because I don't like the way armor looks on the shorter races. That sounds awful, I'm sorry, and I also don't like the way that the camera gets lowered. But yeah, so dwarfs can take on a stone form. Like I'm assuming that's sort of like in Super Mario, when you have the frog suit that lets you turn into stone. That's probably like a defense buff. They have increased critical chances with guns, so dwarfs would make good hunters. It looks like they have resistance to frost magic. They're pretty good at treasure finding, and they can really go with maces. So, like I said before, paladins or shamans, but you can't be a shaman with a dwarf. I think priests can also use um, maces. I can't remember, but yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and let you read this. In ages past, the dwarves cared only for riches taken from the earth's depths. I do think dwarves have the coolest alliance um, city. Can't remember what it's called. Ironforge, maybe. I've always liked going to there whenever I had alliance characters. But oh, when I said that I didn't really like any alliance except for Draenei, I meant also Night Elf. I love me some Night Elf. Before I forget to do this, let me go ahead and show off the female model for you, humans and dwarfs. Forgot to do that. Um, not ideal. There we go. Yeah, she has a nose ring. I never noticed that you could do that. That's actually pretty tempting. But I kind of already know what I'm going to pick. So, Night Elves. I've played Night Elves quite a few times. When I played when I was 11 back in like 2008. That's how you say that. That's a normal fucking way to say that. Back when I played in 2008, 2009, I was like 11 or 12. I actually had a Night Elf named Sonic. Um, it was a druid. Um, but yeah, so Night Elves can like kind of, so the rogues have like an ability to fade out into shadows. The Night Elves can do that as well. They're more difficult to hit. They have like a higher chance to dodge. They have a ability to move faster while they're dead. So like when you're running back to your body after you die, and they are resistant to nature damage. So like other druids and stuff, maybe like elementals, I think as well would do nature damage, or maybe they would do whatever the element is. Now that I think about it, um, maybe like ground elementals or whatever the fuck. But 10,000 years ago, the Night Elves founded a vast empire, but their reckless use of primal magic brought them to ruin. Yeah. They can be druids, which is the only alliance that can be druids as of Wrath of the Lich King. And Cataclysm, Worgans also gain the ability. And I think maybe Trolls gain the ability, which we'll get the Trolls over here later. Show off the male and female differences. Hit randomize a few times on each. I didn't do this for humans because it's just fucking humans. I think, was it, no, Mr. T, when Mr. T did the Mr. T commercials for Warcraft. I think he wasn't a night elf. He was an orc. I can't remember now, honestly. Um, but yeah, let's head on to gnomes. So we got gnomes. They got. I remember pink hair. Is basically what I remember from gnomes. Uh, but they can. Just responding to this text. They can escape from speed altering effects, so kind of like the snare stuff that humans have, except they can get out of slow. They have increased intelligence, so like I said, they would have more mana, which makes sense because they can be mages and warlocks. They really only have 4 options, because Death Knights, you cannot be a Death Knight until level 60. I'll cover that when I go over classes. And we have Draenei. I said my piece about the gnomes when I talked about dwarfs. All I really remember is the pink hair, because girls would have like the big. There we go. I hit randomize too many times, but they would have like the big ponytails, the big poofy ponytails. Yeah. Oh, and they have an increased engineering skill. So gnomes are like dwarfs, but they're more into engineering and magic, I think. But though small in stature, the gnomes of Casmodan have used their great intellect to secure a place in history. Numergan is Numergon. I've never been able to say that correctly, or maybe I can, and I've just never had anyone tell me how it is correctly pronounced. Numergon. That's a dungeon later in the game. I think level, like around level 40. That sounds about right. 36, 40. Yeah, can't wait to get there. And the Draenei, which is one of the biggest like male female differences in the game. Tauren is also pretty bad. But yeah, so I really like Draenei. Draenei were added in the Burning Crusade. Um, we'll get more into that, what that means in 500 episodes. But yeah, so Draenei are jewel crafters. Um, and they have like a healing effect that they can use on others. They buff your party's like ability to hit, and they're resistant to shadow damage, which would be like shadow priests and I'm assuming like warlock pets. I think that really applies more to PvP than anything. But yeah, so they are driven from the homeworld of Argus. The honorable Draenei fled the Burning Legion for eons before finding a remote planet to settle on. Yada yada. A lucky few yeah. A lucky few fled to Azeroth, where they now seek allies in the battle against the Burning Legion, which again we will get to when we get to the Burning Crusade expansion, if we get there, honestly, because what the fuck, that's a lot of fucking game to play. So on to the Horde. I much prefer the Horde. I pretty much always have. My first character was a Tauren, back when I thought Taurens were cool and not weird and racist. But we'll get there. So, and orcs, they have like an orc rage ability. Probably not. The Alliance has a lot of racism coded into it, especially with orcs basically being. I don't want to say that they're an analog for black people, but they definitely get treated as like slaves and stuff. It's not ideal, but a lot of people love the orcs. So the orc race originated on the planet Draenor, which is where Draenei come from. Peaceful people of shamanic beliefs. They were enslaved by the Burning Legion and forced into war with the humans. Blah blah blah. The resistant to stun, which would be like a rogue would be able to stun you. Maybe an engineer with flash bombs. Orcs orcs would make good hunters because their pets do more damage. They would also make good warlocks and death knights for the same reason. And they're really good with axes and fist weapons, which would make them good warriors and rogues, if I remember correctly. Because monks are not in the game yet. So that's the male orc. Let's check out the female. Big difference. Kind of looks more like She-Hulk than anything. Just hit randomize a couple of times. So the undead are my favorite. I love the undead starting area. Everything up to the Undercity. Actually, everything up to the like. Everything up to Shadowkeep. Shadowkeep, is that what I'm thinking of? Shadowfang Keep? Shadowfang Keep is what I'm thinking of. But the undead can remove fear and sleep charm. Remove fear, sleep, and charm. So like they can basically do what the humans can do. They can consume corpses to regain health. which is okay. That's fun. Thanks, game. I guess I'm taking too long because that did not happen the last time I recorded this. Let's go to warrior. Back to warrior. I put this back on female. They can cannibalize any humanoid corpse to get health back, which saves you a lot of money later when you're buying food and water. I still need to buy water, but if you're going to be a warrior or a rogue or a death knight, do death knights use mana? I can't remember. You won't really need water. You'll need water if you're a mage, a warlock, or a priest, though. So then, undead can breathe underwater for like 3 times as long as humans or any of the other races, and they are resistant to shadow damage, like the Draenei are. Yes, like the Draenei. So they're free of the Lich King's grasp, which means that like the Lich King like brings up undead, but sometimes the undead are not loyal to the Lich King. Led by the Banshee Sylvanas, they hunger for vengeance against the Scourge. Humans too, so the Scourge is the Lich King's army of undead. Humans too have become the enemy, relentless in the drive to purge all undead from the land and forsaking care little even for their allies. To them, the Horde is merely a tool that may further their dark schemes. So that kind of plays into the story later, but I've never really been super keen on the story of World of Warcraft. It's whatever. But let's check out the males. Hit randomize a couple of times. But I don't want to go too into this because, spoilers, I'm going to be an undead. I put out a poll on Twitter, and that is what won. So let's check out Taurens. An analog for Native Americans. Not a great one, also. So they can stomp, stunning nearby opponents. They got pretty good maximum health. They can be really good herbalists, which is like it's a bunch of professions in the game. I'll probably go over a couple of them, but I was never a big profession person. And they're resistant to nature damage, like night elves. So the Taurens strive to preserve the balance of nature and heed the will of the goddess, the Earth Mother. Their like main antagonists are the centaurs, at least in the beginning of the game. Also pigmen. I can't remember what they're called, but we won't have to do that. To honor this blood debt, the Tauren joined the Horde, solidifying the two races' friendship. So the Tauren are the only other race that can be druids. If I play a druid for this series, it will be a night elf. I don't really care much for Tauren, even though my first character was a Tauren. I had a Tauren hunter, so that's fun. I remade my Tauren hunter a few years ago, and I played Wrath of the Lich King again for the first time, and like from like 2009 to 2015, so 6 years. But I never really got that far. Trolls, I forgot to. So here's the difference between a Tauren male and a Tauren female. So it's not ideal. I've never really liked this difference. It's really jarring. I don't like it. Let's move on. So trolls. Trolls can also berserk like the orcs can, but it increases the speed instead of damage. They get back their health and their mana faster. They can do extra damage against like beasts, so anything that a hunter can tame, I think. They got increased critical chance for throwing weapons and bows. So if you wanted to be a hunter or a rogue, rogues would be using throwing weapons, hunters would be using bows. and reduced duration of movement, reducing effects. So stuff like slow would have lower percentage of time. Once at home in the jungles of Stranglethorn Vale, the fierce trolls of the Darkspear tribe were pushed out by warring factions. Trolls befriended the Horde. Basically, trolls and the orcs have the same starting area. Taurens have a different starting area on the same continent, and the undead are in the Alliance starting area. So, going back to the themes of the Horde being an analog for races, um, the trolls are basically weird Jamaican stereotypes. It's not ideal. um, it's not ideal. But I still really like trolls a lot. And fun fact, I stand like this. This is my posture, and it's very fucking bad for me. But so hunters can, I mean not hunter, trolls can be druids now, I think. But they can be really versatile. The only thing they really can't be are warlocks and paladins, and of course druids in Lich King. I'm not sure how much of that has changed in current WoW, but I'm just gonna hit randomize a couple of times, let you see some of the. So I've always really liked trolls, and also trolls have a really cool mount. We'll go over mounts later in the series, and the female troll is also another instance of like, what the fuck. So perfect posture, of course, because you can't have bad posture as a woman. Yeah, I really have nothing to say here. I have a female troll rogue on my other account, but I only really got to like level 25 or something. Didn't get too far. I might play a troll during the series. I do have. I want to eventually play a few different characters. Maybe show off some different stuff, but not sure. And last but not least, we have Blood Elves. So that's the female Blood Elf, and here's the male Blood Elf. Fucking Virgil motherfucker. So, Blood Elves cannot be warriors, which I think is the only. Yes. So Blood Elves are the only race that cannot be warriors, but they can be paladins. They can be pretty much everything but warrior and shaman and druids. As I said before, Death Knights, you gotta be level 60. So on my other account, I have a Death Knight Blood Elf, and there's actually a reason for that, and I'll probably like cut in some footage of my other characters. Back when I played this game originally in 2008, 2009, I had a Blood Elf Death Knight named Destros, and it was like a random name generator name. I didn't really think too much of it, but when I started my first YouTube channel in like 2010, 2011, I needed a name for my persona, my online identity, and I picked Destros after that old World of Warcraft character that I didn't have access to anymore, and doomed myself to a stupid name for the rest of my life. That has since been shortened to Des, which I'm okay with. Des is a pretty alright name. But let's randomize the Blood Elves. So the Blood Elf is the other Burning Crusade race. Wrath of the Lich King added Death Knights. And Blood Elves are enchanters. I mean, you can be whatever you want, but they get a buff to enchanting. They can restore mana, energy, or runic power, like naturally. They can silence nearby opponents. Silencing is like not being able to cast, so that would be useful for if you wanted to stop a priest or a mage from casting anything. And they're resistant to magical damage, so again, priests, mages, warlocks. Long ago, the exiled high elves. Ooh, this is a fucking lot. Can I get this? There we go. Long ago, the exiled high elves found and killed Thalas, where they created a magical fount called the Sunwell. Though they were strengthened by its powers, they also grew increasingly dependent on them. Ages later, the undead scourge destroyed the Sunwell and most of the high elf population. Now called Blood Elves, these scattered refugees are burning Kilthalas as they search for a new magic source to satisfy their painful addiction. So, yeah. I've always really liked the Blood Elf background, as well as the undead background and the Death Knight background. The rest of the backgrounds are just kind of bland. The rest of the backgrounds are just kind of bland, in my opinion. Night Elf is kind of okay. I'm never really been a fan of snowy places in video games, which is another reason that I'm not a big fan of dwarfs and gnomes. But this video has been going on for a pretty long time, so let's go ahead and make my character. I was originally going to make a male undead rogue, but I'm kind of digging the undead female. So let's scroll through and see what we can do with this. Not a big fan of that face. I like that face a bit better, but I think I need different features. Yeah, that's good. But let's get this hairstyle changed. Oh yeah. Is there a better hair color? You know what? I think this is what we're going with. So I never went over classes, so let's do this now. This will save when I go off of it. So warriors are your basic damage dealers, not basic are your basic tanks. They, can get big plate armor eventually. They start off with mail. Paladins are warriors with magic. They can heal, but they can also do all of the other stuff. Go ahead and scroll so that anyone who cares can read. Paladins, like I said, they can heal, but you would probably much rather just be a tank. I've been spoiled by Final Fantasy XIV, which doesn't have like multi roles. You're kind of just stuck in the role that you are. So hunters are really fun. They can get a pet as a companion and eventually equip male armor. Scroll so that you can read. I'll go over rogue when I make my character. A priest can be a damage dealer, but they're mostly healers. Shadow priests are basically warlocks without the pet. They use mana. And there's the blurb if you want to read it. So you have to be level 60 on another character before you can do any Death Knight stuff, because Death Knights start at level 55. They start with plate armor, and they can either be tanks or they can be DPS. I think most people use them as tanks, but they can summon minions, which I've always really liked in this game. I mained a warlock. I started as a hunter, so Death Knight really appealed to me because I could have a friend, a nice pet. But let's go ahead and scroll through this. Former agents of the Scourge now allied themselves with the Alliance or Horde. Death Knights are a hero class, which means that they start at a high level. Future hero classes, I think, are like you can eventually be a demon hunter. I think for Legion. I'm not sure what the other hero classes are. Alright. Gotta go down to Draenei for Shaman. So Shamans are kind of healers, mostly damage dealers. They can use leather and then mail eventually, and they can use a shield. I think they mostly use maces as well, but thanks. I love you, Blizzard. Well, this isn't Blizzard, I guess. Whatever. Um, and they have these things called totems. So as you level up, you learn the ability to place different totems, and they can either heal you or, well, use totems to buff, heal, or deal damage. So shamans are kind of a pet class with the totems, but I prefer actual pets that walk around with you. So here's the blurb if you want to read it. Mages are pure damage dealers. They wear robes and shit. They're either frost, fire, or arcane. That's a hard sentence for me to say. And they can polymorph enemies. I know it looks like I'm just reading over here, but let's go up to human, get a little bit of a different look. So I think the like famous polymorph spell is like turn into a sheep. What that does is it crowd controls and lets you focus on one enemy at a time. Later in the game, they can teleport to cities, and they can actually teleport other players to cities. So if you want to earn money later in the game, you can sell teleports to big cities, help people get around faster. They use mana as a resource like any other magic casters. And there's the blurb if you want to read it. Warlocks are wizards, the mages with the ability to summon demons. That's it. Here's the blurb if you want to read it. I love warlocks, but my last character was a warlock, the one that I went to level 80 with. So I don't think I want to burn out on the game immediately. So that's why I'm not doing a warlock again. But I might, if this series goes anywhere, or if I keep up with this, I might eventually make a warlock and play through some of it. And last but not least, druids, which can be tanks, healers, or damage. And what they do is you can eventually, as you level up, you will learn to shapeshift into different animals. So, like, I think the first animal form you learn is bear, and then you learn cat at like level 20 or something. And bear is your tank, cat is like your rogue, and you can cast magic as the humanoid form. And then later in the game there's like bird form and healer form and the form of like a treant or something. But I really like druids. I'm not into playing a druid right now, which is why I'm not doing it. But if I ever do a night elf character, it will be a druid, because the only other way I would be able to play a druid is to play another night elf or to play a tauren, and I don't want to do that. So here's the blurb, and it's time to make my character and finally end this video. So yeah, it saved my character, or I got really lucky with the with the randomization. So I think what we're going to do is rogue. So rogues are pure damage dealers. They wear leather and they can dual wield, so either swords or knives. I think maybe maces don't make sense. But they so with a rogue you can like go invisible and sneak around, and enemies can't see you but you walk slower. And to play rogue is different. Instead of having a mana bar or a rage bar, your attacks give you these little medallions, and when you build up enough medallions, certain moves unlock. And when a move unlocks, you can spend your medallions to use that move, and it will be like massive damage. It's called combos. You can build up to 5. And rogues use energy, so instead of mana, they have energy. So rogues often serve as assassins or scouts. There are many lone wolves as well. Rogues specialize in dual wielding. Rogues can often sneak around enemies or attack an opponent from behind to try and finish them off quickly. The primary stats are attack power and agility. So we are making this character a undead rogue, and that is what I will be playing this series as. So let's go on to name her. I already recorded this video once before, so you don't have to awkwardly listen to me go through a random name generator to find the name of this character. I think what I settled on is Romelli. It'll get easier for me to say over time. Romelli, basically. So, except... Fuck. Plan B. There we go. So we have Romelli, level 1. And on the next episode, we will head into the game and start picking up those starting area quests. Couldn't be a World of Warcraft video without your name being taken. See you next time.